The House Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Young.
Present.
Representative Scofield.
Here.
Glanville.
Yes.
Arbit. Edwards.
Here.
McDonald.
Present.
Wozniak. Here. Fox.
Yep.
Johnson.
Here.
Thompson.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 9 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. Now I need a motion to approve the minutes of our December 3rd meeting. So moved by Representative Edwards. Excellent. Okay, so we got a packed agenda, we got a packed house. We're going to keep things moving here. Today we will be taking testimony on House Bills 6234 and 6235 that will prohibit the sale of nicotine or tobacco products with a characterizing flavor, which includes flavored e-cigarettes and menthol flavored cigarettes. And with that, the committee will go at ease.
The Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come back to order. Chair Young, thank you so much for bringing this legislation forward. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you. I need you to go to, would you go at ease at the call of the chair?
Committee will go at ease at the call of the chair.
Thank you.
We're working on it. The Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come back to order. And Madam Chair Young, you have the floor. Thank you for bringing this legislation forward.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the committee and for this opportunity to speak to the whole package of bills once again. Last week, we took testimony on 3 bills. Just want to kind of go over that right now. The tobacco retail licensure requiring tobacco retailers to be licensed just like liquor and recreational marijuana retailers so that the state can enforce laws prohibiting the sale of tobacco to minors. We also took testimony on local control preemption repeal, allowing local counties and cities to enact restrictions on tobacco sales within their own communities. And then we took testimony on decriminalization, the purchase, use, and possession repealing ineffective penalties that punish kids for tobacco purchase, use, or possession. That happens to be my bill. I feel really strongly about that. I know people have opinions about everything. That's the cool thing about the legislature. And so I wanted to just kind of give us a kind of level set on the things that we've already talked about, because we look to vote out some of these bills on today. What we do know is that Michigan happens to be an outlier and lags behind other states. As a result, we have higher rates of tobacco use, higher healthcare costs, higher rates of illegal sales to minors, and the list can actually go on and on. And so with that, I also want to go ahead, if you don't mind, Madam Chair and members, is to talk about House Bill 6235, 6234, and 6235 that are also before you on today. I happen to be the sponsor of 6235, which will amend the Youth and Tobacco Act to do all of the following: change the name of the act to the Nicotine and Tobacco Act, prohibits selling or advertising a tobacco product that has a characterizing flavor, provide penalties for a violation or preemption regarding whether a tobacco product has a characterizing flavor and exceptions, and create the Nicotine and Tobacco Regulation Fund. Essentially, these bills will end the sale of flavored tobacco statewide. And I know that sounds like woo, but what I'll tell you is when we look at the benefits that we can have for our youth, it's really important to listen to this legislation and to support it. Last month, the U.S. Surgeon General released a new report eliminating tobacco-related disease and death, addressing disparities. This new report documents the existing evidence of the health consequences and persistent disparities in tobacco use. The report finds that flavored tobacco products play a key role in these disparities, concluding that there is strong evidence regarding the role of flavored tobacco products in creating and sustaining tobacco use and the efficacy of policies that prohibit the sale of flavored products. Since our last meeting, the CDC Foundation also issued a critical new report that revealed a 47% increase in e-cigarette unit sales at U.S. retail outlets from 2019 to 2023, with flavor categories like fruit, candy, menthol, and dessert accounting for more than 80% of those sales. 80% of those sales. I just want to be clear, not only are most of these products on the market illegally, there's no e-cigarette that has been approved by the FDA for a cessation aid. So you can't use those potentially to stop smoking. If manufacturers want to market their products to help smokers quit, they must receive FDA approval just like any other FDA-approved drug. This report also includes new evidence of the benefits and positive outcomes in states that have already taken this step. For example, in Massachusetts, sales restrictions as well as a range of effective enforcement measures reduce sales of flavored e-cigarettes by more than 98% in brick and mortar retailers. This data highlights the need for more states like Michigan to adopt comprehensive statewide policies. Further, these reports and new data provide strong evidence that states and localities must step up and prohibit flavored tobacco sales in order to better protect our youth, tackle tobacco-related disparities, reduce healthcare costs, and save lives. The consequences of nicotine addiction are well known. We must do more to prevent young people from falling into lifelong addiction. I know when I gave my testimony the first time, I talked about having lost my dad to lung cancer. He was one who started smoking at the age of 13. That's the thing that they were doing. He would have been over 100 if he were still alive, but he died from lung cancer. And unfortunately for me, I grew up in a household with people who were smokers, both my mother and my dad. They were both smokers, and I thought it was cool to smoke as well. But for me, it wasn't something that I liked to do. It was also at the time, because I'm pretty old, I'll be 60 my next birthday. I don't mind telling folks. But during my time, we didn't have candy flavored cigarettes, and we didn't have these menthol flavored type of cigarettes necessarily that would really cause me to want to get into it and investigate it even more. And so fortunately, I personally didn't pick up the habit. I'm grateful that I didn't as a child, and grateful that I didn't as an adult. And for adults, I'll tell you, you all are smart. You know how to make decisions for yourself. But we are here to be certain that the young people who aren't able to make those types of smart, wise choices as adolescents get our support from the legislature. And so that's what we're doing with this bill package, making certain that our children here in the state of Michigan are prioritized, that their health is prioritized. I will just share one last thing. When I had an opportunity to go to the Congressional Black Caucus, it's the huge Congressional Black Caucus in Washington. And when I arrived there, there was a big sign that says the disparities in the African American community as well as other communities as it relates to nicotine addiction. It was amazing. I had not seen that. And hopefully the team passed out some information that you all can learn a little bit more about that. But there are certain groups that have been targeted. When you talk about going into a certain neighborhood and just giving away cigarettes. And I'm not saying this is still happening, but it used to happen. And now we're dealing with the effects in adults. So with that, I want to pass it over to my partner here. I'm going to let him introduce himself and why he's here with us on today.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michael Emmanuel Smith. I am a son. I am a big brother. I'm a young black man. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a college student earning my degree in mortuary science. I'm a Detroiter. Most exciting, I am 19 and I was a first-time voter. I grew up in Detroit and graduated from Ferndale High School. As a student at Ferndale, I participated in many leadership activities. One of my programs I was involved in was CADCA, which stands for Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. CADCA is a nonprofit organization that is committed to creating safe, healthy, and drug-free communities globally. I loved my experience with CADCA, as well as my work as a peer mentor and coach for the Take Down Tobacco Days in Detroit and Pontiac. I want you to know that tobacco is still a big problem in my community, and it is a huge problem across the state of Michigan. The main reasons kids and young people are still getting hooked on nicotine is because of the flavors. Flavors hook kids. The tobacco industry used flavored nicotine to hook kids to a lifetime of tobacco addiction. As older smokers die off, they need younger smokers to replace them. Flavors improve the taste and mask the harshness of tobacco products, making it easier for kids to try these products and ultimately become addicted. According to the latest national data, 8 in 10 kids who have ever used a tobacco product started in flavored products. Over 1.6 million U.S. youth use e-cigarettes. Nearly 9 in 10 reported using a flavored product. Youth are not just experimenting with e-cigarettes, but they're using them on a frequent basis. By frequent basis, I mean like every 10 to 20 minutes. This is an indicator of serious addiction. In 2024, over 40% of high school students reported that they used e-cigarettes or vape on 20 or more days a month, and 30% reported daily use. We also know that Michigan's weak regulations result in high rates of illegal sales to minors. In 2023, 59% of federal compliance checks in Detroit resulted in a legal sale to a minor. That's 59%. Let's face it, kids in Michigan have easy access to cheap, disposable flavored nicotine tobacco products packed with nicotine. This is a big problem. It's causing preventable addiction, preventable health problems, and preventable emotional and financial costs to our families, our communities, and even our healthcare systems. I also want to note that most of the flavored tobacco on the market has not even been authorized for sale. Dr. Taylor, at our last meeting, talked about this previously, and it's worth repeating. A recent report found that 86% of the e-cigarettes on the market are illegal. Last year, I worked with Detroit City Council and youth advocates to pass a resolution urging you, the legislator, to enact stronger tobacco regulations, including ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products. A resolution was our only option because current sale law prevents local decision-making. That's where preemption comes in. I am here today on behalf of Michigan youth asking you, our lawmakers, to stand with us being the people that are behind me, and pass stronger policies that put our kids and health first. Let's end the sale of flavored tobacco. Let's empower local communities to do what is right for them. Let's require tobacco retailers to obtain a license to sell a deadly and addictive product, and let's stop punishing kids now. I tell young people all the time that your voice matters, so here I am. Please join us and pass these bills and this entire bill package this year. Time is ticking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor or Mr. Smith from the committee?
Madam Chair, we're going to take additional testimony, and then perhaps we can do the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Young and members of the committee. This has been a long time coming, and I'm here to make it count. This is a picture of my father, Reginald Lewis Trent. He was an auto worker, retired from Chrysler after 35 years. These are his ashes. I brought him and all of our ancestors here today to fight this important fight. It's for them. It's for all Michiganders, and it's for our kids. It shouldn't matter what race you are. It shouldn't matter what party you're a part of. It shouldn't matter your gender or your sexual preference. All kids matter, and we have to do something about it. I serve as the chair of the Detroit Wayne Oakland Tobacco Free Coalition, and I'm a board member of Tobacco Free Michigan. I'm on the leadership team for the Keep My Kids Tobacco Free Alliance. And make no mistake, while it's my profession, it's personal. I'm passionate about helping people of color build healthier communities. Our governor declared racism as a public health threat. If we are going to do something to address that issue in these final days and final hours, now is your chance. I'm also a tobacco prevention content expert with specific interest in menthol. As Chair Young noted in her introduction, we all pay the price for tobacco use. Tobacco use costs Michigan over $5 billion in excess health care costs and over 16,000 lives annually. Meanwhile, the tobacco industry spends over $300 million each year in our state to attract new customers and keep current smokers addicted. And here's what we know about menthol. It is a fact that menthol makes it easier to start smoking and harder to quit. For decades, the tobacco industry has targeted Black communities, and especially children, with their marketing for menthol cigarettes and other tobacco products like flavored cigars. You heard Michael talk about it. You heard Chair Young talk about it. And my own father, who was a newspaper boy, bought his first pack of cigarettes when he was 14 years old after completing his paper route. That was a time when the Youth Tobacco Act was not in place. Imagine, I could still have my father. My kids could still have their grandfather if that law was in place. You have an opportunity today to make sure that future kids have their grandparents, their fathers, their aunts and uncles by passing this law. I saw it firsthand growing up in the city of Detroit during the 80s. So many people in my immediate circle were smoking menthols, including both of my parents. We were surrounded by flashy ads in magazines. We read those magazines and thought that it was cool. I personally saw models dressed up in gold jumpsuits passing out free cigarettes at the African World festivals. This is when minimum wage was $3.85 an hour. Guess what? They were paid $10 an hour at the end of each day just for distributing those cigarettes. And now we know we were played. The tobacco industry documents provide clear evidence that we were played. And they're here today to play us even more. And I don't have the tobacco industry's money, but I have the truth on my side, and I have Michiganders who want this law passed. The industry's predatory marketing has had a devastating impact on Black health and Black lives. Tobacco use is the #1 cause of preventable death and disease among Black Americans, claiming 45,000 Black lives each year. It's not just my father. It's not just her father. Everybody has been touched in some way, shape, or form. And so I find it appalling that people can be paid and take money for the tobacco industry to our demise. From 1980 to 2018, Black Americans only made up 12% of the U.S. population, but represented 15% of additional smokers and 41%, let me repeat that, 41% of premature deaths due to menthol, which is a flavor, cigarettes, 157,000 premature deaths among Black Americans. I want you to think about that. Those aren't stats, those are people. We know this is no incident or coincidence. For decades, the tobacco industry has deployed aggressive advertising and other tactics designed to hook African Americans on menthol cigarettes. They did this to other communities too, including my brothers and sisters from the LGBTQ+ community, the Hispanic community, and more recently, Arab American communities and many others. In 2009, Congress passed a ban on all flavored cigarettes except for menthol. They left us out. Please right this wrong. Since then, the federal efforts to right this wrong have been stalled, and we've seen that play out in this last election year. Some states and local jurisdictions have stepped up to eliminate the sale of all flavored tobacco products, but none in Michigan, because we are in a small minority of states in which municipalities are preempted from regulating tobacco locally, and we continue to suffer these consequences. Let me tell you real quick how we're enforcing our weak tobacco laws in Detroit. Grandmothers. That's right, parents and grandmothers report to community advocates like me, which local retailers are selling tobacco products and other illegal products to kids. Then we work with our allies on the city council and local government and law enforcement to shut them down. We've shut down 6 retailers in Detroit this past year. It shouldn't be up to grandparents in Detroit to enforce our tobacco prevention policies. We need stronger policies and equitable enforcement. Building stronger, healthier communities is not only my profession, it's my passion. I've seen the horrible consequences of tobacco addiction affect my family. I lost not only my father, but my grandmother, my aunt, and my best friend. This is our history. It does not need to be our future. There is a well-funded campaign underway to undermine our progress and keep us addicted. You might have read something in the newspaper today. The industry fuels these mistruths that these policies will increase criminalization and incarceration. That is a lie. I refuse to let an industry that makes money off of death and disease in my community and manipulate our collective trauma and stand in the way of meaningful, overdue change that will indeed save lives. It was an honor to speak to you today. As I said, it's been a long, hard fight. And I stand with the residents of our great state of Michigan and ask you to move forward and pass all the tobacco bills that are in front of you today. We can't wait any longer. Our lives depend on this. Thank you. Reverend Sheffield.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair Young, do you have an additional person you would like to have
I do
testify
believe-
before you retake the gavel?
Reverend Horace Sheffield is joining us. Is he here? Oh,
Reverend Sheffield, feel free to come forward to testify. Thank you,
Ma'am.
sir. Welcome.
It'll take me a moment to dry my tears behind Manu, my good friend. And good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Reverend Horace Sheffield III. I'm pastor of New Destinies Christian Fellowship and the CEO of the Detroit Association of Black Organizations. Make no mistake, this is big business to an industry that continues to profit from the addiction, disease, and death of all of our families and our communities. When I spoke in Washington, I said those of us in legislative positions who condone this and allow it to go, we're not the direct assassins, but we're pallbearers. It's such a big business that when I came out in support of a federal rule to ban menthol cigarettes, civil rights leaders that I've known and others promptly had R.J. Reynolds call me and offer me $250,000 if I would change my position and get behind the popular brand of menthol cigarettes and not have it banned. This is not unique. The tobacco industry has a long history of attempting to influence policy, actions by investing in black leaders and black-led organizations, which are often in desperate straits trying to find money to fund their programs. As I said in an interview, we shouldn't be lured into doing things which are contradictory to our calling and to our public posture simply because we need more money to continue to operate. Our voices should not be for sale, mine isn't, and others shouldn't be as well, and our organizations cannot be bought. I was not tempted to take the money. I'll tell you why, because on May 21st, 1971, I watched my 43-year-old mother take her last breath. I just recently inducted into the High School Football Hall of Fame in Canton. I was a promising football player, and my mother was having difficulty breathing. I begged her to let me take her to the hospital, but she was more concerned about my future than her pain. She died, 43 years of age. Major heart attack because she had emphysema that was exacerbated by smoking menthol cigarettes. So that's why I'm committed, I want to say something funny. In all my adult life, if I went out with a young lady and she picked up a cigarette, I took her home and I asked her to stop smoking. This is serious. It's very serious. And I grew up in a home where my grandparents, farm tobacco, and every form of tobacco you could imagine. They dipped it, they snuffed, they chewed it, but this is really something that's killing us. I was 16 years of age. While the pain of losing her to a preventable disease remains, I long ago turned my attention to lending my voice to causes focused on raising awareness and passing meaningful, life-saving policies. I have a slogan. To my friends, if Black lives matter, Black lungs do too. Please move forward today and pass these policies. Science is on our side. States and communities that have come before us and enacted similar life-saving policies are also on our side. Michiganders from every corner of the state are on our side. Democrats are on our side. Republicans are on our side. And I promise history will be on our side as well.
okay. Thank you, Reverend Sheffield.
Thank you, Reverend Sheffield and Rep. Young. Colleagues, do you have questions for the bill sponsor or the folks giving testimony? Representative Glanville, please.
Yeah, I have, I'm looking for a little clarification here. I keep hearing the words tobacco and nicotine kind of being interchanged. And I was wondering if you could speak to that. I certainly, and just for the record, I appreciate what you're saying about gateway drugs. I started smoking on menthol cigarettes, way back in the day, back when we had a smoking section in school. Yes, you remember that, right? It was a thing. Quit long ago. But be that as it may, like I said, I'm trying to understand the difference between nicotine and tobacco in this case, because I know, there are,
Yeah,
So if you can help me understand that.
Because there is a difference, but I want the doctor to.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm hearing a lot about, lung disease and things like that, and certainly that is a smoking habit, but there are other ways to consume nicotine that don't involve smoking, so that's what I'm curious about.
So hi, I'm Dr. Brittany Taylor. I spoke to you last week. I'm a pediatrician and internist here, and so this is my specialty. So nicotine is the active component in tobacco. So tobacco is a plant, and it naturally makes nicotine, which is an addictive substance. It's also a stimulant. It's the second most commonly used drug in the United States behind caffeine, which I might have taken too much of today too. And so it specifically acts on the prefrontal cortex of the brain and changes the reward pathway and the dopamine pathway, which is like the happy drug, which drives that. And so there are some versions of products, thus why we wanted to actually change the name, that are synthetic nicotine, so they are not derived from the plant. So most e-cigarette components, as well as nicotine pouches and different things like that, actually come from a synthetically made nicotine, but it's still the same active component. So a lot of times we'll use the word tobacco, but really we're largely talking about nicotine, that addictive component, if that answers your question.
Kind of. I'm just, I guess, I'm trying to separate in my mind, like the stories of, like I said, the health impact. What are the health impacts of nicotine itself, separate from tobacco? Does that cause heart disease and lung cancer and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of components of a cigarette that are harmful, but nicotine itself is a carcinogen, and it is the big component that actually drives the heart disease and the kidney disease from that, because it actually because it's a stimulant, it raises your blood pressure, and so it causes stress onto the blood vessels. So that is the reason that it's the leading cause of stroke, heart disease, kidney disease, and death, is because of that. And it by itself, when you take it out of a cigarette, still causes breast cancer, lung disease, so COPD, emphysema, lung cancer, kidney cancer, all sorts of different things with that. So it itself, by itself, just consuming it, whether it's orally, snuffing it, anything like that, is still bad. It's even worse if you heat it up and you put it with all of the other chemicals, whether that's an e-cigarette or a cigarette.
All right, thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions? Vice Chair Wozniak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Questions, how would this bill affect the cigar industry and/or the hookah industry?
I can answer this too. So this was something that we were really careful about as well. Currently, most cigars that are sold in a cigar shop are not flavored. They're just tobacco flavored or unflavored. And one of this would impact small cigars called cigarellos, which are flavored. And so that would eliminate those for sale. And we know that those, the Swisher Sweets, are a big one that a lot of our youth will use as well. It's the third most commonly used tobacco product by our youth. And so that would eliminate this. But for a large part, for most cigar shops, this is not going to impact them whatsoever when it comes to the flavor piece of this bill. In terms of the hookah, we were very mindful and conscientious about what we did with this, acknowledging that hookah is sometimes thought to be part of Arabic and Middle Eastern culture. And so we did two big things with this. One is we did a survey ourselves where we talked to Michigan-specific Arabic population and the Chaldean population, and we said, how do you feel about these policies specifically? And do you feel like this is an attack on Arabic culture or anything like that? Overwhelmingly, they were in support of all of these bills, including the flavor bill, and they made notes about the fact that they do not think that hookah is cultural, but it's actually just kind of a thing that they do in pastime. And so we wanted to make sure that their voice was represented, and we were very active in talking to the public health department in Dearborn about these bills and getting a lot of feedback around them. The second thing is, due to some of the discussions with that, we actually took out that you can consume flavored hookah products while you're in a hookah lounge, but you cannot buy it. So still, it doesn't take away from if you wanted to go to a hookah lounge, enjoy it, because that was a big concern that they had. So we tried to be very responsive, acknowledging that I am a white woman, so that's not for me to talk about, and we didn't want to come in and take something away from someone else.
But to my question, how is this going to affect the hookah industry?
So it will, to be honest, especially here in Michigan, most people consume hookah while they're at a hookah lounge. They're not usually buying it and doing that in their personal homes. So it will have a very limited impact in terms of the amount of hookah sales because most people are buying it, and that's not going to impact the hookah lounges whatsoever.
Any additional questions? Committee will go at ease at the call of the chair.
The committee will now come back to order. If we could have Raheem Diaz come to the table to provide testimony. He is giving testimony on House Bill 6235, opposing the bill. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning, Chair and committee. I'm in opposition. Michigan has legalized marijuana and has reduced which has reduced illegal underground marijuana sales. Why is it that we are doing this right thing there, yet also shifting to replace that prison pipeline with menthol tobacco? Keep menthol tobacco products above ground, where they are regulated, where there are no police interactions for use and possession, and where the age restrictions that allow access to only adults to choose them. The opposition here is many Black and Latino people who choose to smoke prefer menthols. If this prohibition is passed, it will increase the trafficking of unregulated cigarettes across states' lines, police interactions, racial profiling, and worse. There is a better way. We must do this. The ban is rooted in the historical targeting of people of color, targeting that can lead to too many deaths and unarmed Black men. On top of that, menthol cigarettes are not the most used cigarettes in America. Non-menthol cigarettes are. It is discrimination to target Black and Latino smokers who prefer menthol. Please don't ban tobacco, menthol tobacco.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, if we could have Dan Lehman come before us. Where's Dan? Michigan Distributors and Vendors Association, wishing to speak, opposing the bill. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Lehman, president of the Michigan Distributors and Vendors Association. Our 65-member businesses employ more than 3,000 individuals in the state of Michigan, with $300 million payroll and more than $5 billion in annual sales. Our members are the licensed tobacco wholesalers in the state of Michigan, so we collect and remit the state tobacco tax on all tobacco products in the state, which is a costly operation for our members. We are asking the committee today to vote no on House Bill 6022 and 6235. We feel that these bills will have a numerous and significant consequences, many unintended, on the businesses and consumers here in Michigan. House Bill 6235, the flavor ban would divert $466 million away from the state budget and critical programs. Programs such as Medicaid, school funding, the Health Michigan Fund, Health and Safety Fund, and others. Without that funding, state decision makers would have to find alternative funding or lower those critical programs. With the ban, individuals would just obtain their products from other states or illicit sources and create criminals out of citizens. These products are available in other states, and those that use the products will just source them illegally. These illicit sources don't check IDs. They don't provide product authenticity. They do provide access to more dangerous and illegal drugs, and they fund far worse criminal activities. Flavor bans create an incredible burden on law enforcement and result in selective enforcement and the associated challenges that accompany those measures. House Bill 622, Michigan already has an extensive and comprehensive tobacco regulations in the TPTA. Eliminating local preemption would create a patchwork of regulations across the state. Patchwork of regulations would be incredibly difficult for legitimate businesses to remain compliant and impossible for the authorities to enforce. We've talked about already the issues with enforcement given the current situation. With a patchwork of different rules, depending on municipality, tax rates, bans and such, it would be impossible to enforce. And again, the unenforceable regulations only promote black markets and illicit trade. Again, these illicit markets do not check IDs. They do not, provide authenticity for the products that they're providing, the people that are purchasing them. They provide access to far worse drugs and products and fund, worse criminal activities. The bans from the elimination of local preemption could divert up to $562 million away from necessary programs. As I stated before, state lawmakers would have to find the funding or eliminate critical programs like Medicare, Medicaid, School Aid Fund, Michigan Health Fund, Health and Safety Fund, and others. So the Michigan Distributors and Vendors Association urges the committee to reject House Bill 622 and 6235. Thank you.
Thank you for your sky is falling testimony. But I appreciate, I do appreciate you being here. And I know this is what committee is about. It's about hearing both sides, right? Because we know that we don't always agree on everything. But I do know that you listed some things that really sound like the worst of the worst can happen. And I happen to believe that. Of course, I don't, I'm a bill sponsor. But I appreciate you coming here and sharing your concerns. We have Representative Thompson who has a question for you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Again, thank you. Dr. Taylor, if you could, wait. Oh, you have a question for him. All right. Okay, let's just slow down. First, it was just one name on my sheet. So, Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
To your knowledge, do you know anything about the statistics in Michigan or nationally as to how many people actually smoke? And is that number declining? I believe I've heard it's declining all over.
Yes.
And can you verify that through your membership?
I not through my membership, but I've probably seen the same reports that you have, that tobacco use is declining, youth tobacco use is declining as well.
Okay. And you can't reflect that in sales from your membership?
I can say overall tobacco sales, yes, has declined, over the years.
And the reason for that? Do you have an idea?
I would, assuming there's less people using tobacco products.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We do have a question for Dr. Taylor. If you would come back to the mic, we appreciate that.
Glad I came.
Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, Representative Thompson, yes, go
Oh,
ahead.
thank you very much, thank you. My concern is with patients that are going through addiction. So if you have a patient, we know we have an opioid crisis here in the state of Michigan. We know that people that are addicted to alcohol, when they go through withdrawals, what is your suggestion for banning a menthol cigarette if a patient is going through withdrawals due to an opioid or drug addiction or alcohol addiction? Because we know that can be devastating, almost deadly for people that are going through addiction, to remove that cigarette. Also, second part of that is with the mental health crisis that we currently have in the state of Michigan, outright banning a flavored cigarette that people do have these addictions to. How is that going to impact the mental health in the state of Michigan? And are we able to handle something like that at this current time?
So I'm an internist too, so it means I take care of adults. So a lot of what I do is nicotine cessation, and so menthols are a big one. And so I do acknowledge that the fact that part of the menthol ban is that we want them to quit, and that going through, I'm a previous cigarette smoker, and it took me a long time to quit. So I know what the withdrawal is, and so we talk very openly about this. And so we have products on them that I'm able to prescribe, so it's at no cost to them. That's nicotine replacement, and so that helps with the withdrawal symptoms with that. So either it's a gum, a patch. We also have lozenges, and then some nasal sprays that we don't use quite as much. And so that's a big thing. And I also want to point out, you brought up something really important, is that individuals who have coexisting substance use disorders, particularly with opioids, and individuals who have mental health disorders, anxiety, depression, anything, or a more severe psychiatric condition, are much more likely to use tobacco products. And a lot of times it's because of the fact that they're not getting the care that they need in other places. And so I completely understand that this is often a crutch. And so that's actually some of the first things that I talk about when I'm trying to help someone quit, is I ask, why are you smoking? Why are you using this tobacco product? Because if I can't get to that, I can't get you to quit. And most of the time it's because they're not being addressed. We have expanded our mental health services greatly, and continue to encourage and collaborate with substance use providers, and making sure that we're providing tobacco cessation with that. And so I think that's something that we've greatly expanded, and I think that will be a big part of this, and that we'll continue to do that with some of the other bills. So like the tax piece is supposed to be adding in more of this programming and things like that, so we can expand it. We just expanded the work that MDHHS does in terms of their tobacco quit line in order to help address this, and they also give nicotine replacement with this. And so they just expanded it greatly last month, acknowledging that these bills might go forward. So I do think that we have the ability to do this, and I think we all know, especially with MDHHS and everyone around the state and with our coalition, that if these legislation does go through, that we're going to have a bigger need for this at that time, and we're there to support them through the cessation and the withdrawal from nicotine.
If I could just have one more question, please. What are the risks of the nicotine replacement? Are there any risks?
No, they're not. There isn't any, because it's not systemically absorbed the same exact way. It's not something that we want to continue people on indefinitely. Nicotine does have some, obviously we were talking about, if you're talking about a nicotine pouch, it's different than a lozenge, but we don't want to continue people on that long term. And I think that's one of the big issues that we've actually seen with e-cigarettes, because, we were thinking about using them for cessation, again, not approved, but there has been studies around this, is that a lot of times people continue to use this product even after they've quit using the cigarette. They continue to use these cigarettes. Most people, when they quit, they don't use the nicotine patches or the gum anymore. They're off nicotine completely. But there's no inherent risk in using those nicotine products long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. All right. And we also have Norm Hess. Norm still here? All right, there he is. Norm Hess, Michigan Association for Local Public Health, wishing to testify in support of the bill.
Thank you, Chair Young and members of the committee. You have my written statement, so I will not read it, but I do want to point out that I omitted our support for 6234 and 6235 on the paper that I submitted. It is on my card. We are in strong support of all of the bills. So the Michigan Association for Local Public Health is the statewide professional membership association for the 45 local health departments in Michigan. And we do strongly support the entire package of bills. Despite tremendous progress in public education and in policy development in recent decades, tobacco use continues to be a glaring public health problem and a leading cause of preventable death and disability in Michigan. I do want to concur with two assertions that have been made already, that flavored tobacco products play a key role in youth initiation, and that certain populations are disproportionately affected by the use of flavored tobacco. So I have many other thoughts, but in the interest of brevity, I will not share them all. I don't want to be repetitive, but I would say that we urge the Michigan legislature to repeal Section 14 of the Tobacco Products Act, to end the sale of flavored tobacco products in Michigan, to require tobacco retailers to be licensed, and to repeal ineffective penalties that punish kids for tobacco purchase, use, and possession. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. So I believe that's all that we have. We have quite a few cards to be read in, so just know that they will be entered into the official record and into our minutes. I want to thank everybody for submitting cards, both of support and for opposition, because that's what we do. Oh. Okay, all right. Okay, so next we are going to be taking up the Protect Michigan Kids, some of the bills in the package. We initially took testimony on November 12th. It includes House Bills 6002 through 6005. And so with that, before we do that, we're going to read in a few of these cards. There we go. In support of the bills, not wishing to speak, Caitlin Mitchell Schuker, Corwell Health. And, okay, here we go. In opposition to the bills, not wishing to speak, Leah Robinson, a Michigan Chamber. In opposition to the bills, not wishing to speak, Mark Griffin, Michigan Petroleum Association and Michigan Association of Convenience Stores. Oh, one more. And not wishing to speak, in opposition of the bills, Amy Drum, Michigan Retailers Association. All right. I want to get those in. Got that? Okay. There's a substitute for House Bill 6002. And what that substitute does is establishes when a licensee may sell nicotine or tobacco products outside of its establishment as at a fair, festival, or farmer's market. So kind of addressing some of those pop-up opportunities that people have. With that, I need someone to adopt, let me see, I need a motion to adopt substitute H2. So moved by Representative Edwards. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
On the motion to adopt, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 passed, 4 nays. Motion prevails.
Very good. Next, I need a motion to report House Bill 600, oh wait. Next, I need a motion to report House Bill 6002 with a recommendation as the H2 substitute. So moved by Representative McDonald. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 4 nays, 0 passed. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Next, I need a motion for a substitute for House Bill 6004. Next, I need a motion to report House Bill 6003 with a recommendation. So moved by Representative McDonald. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion to report, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 4 nays, 0 passed. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Now, there is a substitute for House Bill 6004. I need a motion to adopt substitute H1. So moved by Representative Kofia. Please call the roll.
On the motion to adopt, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 4 nays, 0 passed. The substitute is adopted.
Very good. Now I need a motion to report House Bill 6004 with recommendation as an H1 substitute. So moved by Representative Edwards. Mr. Clerk, call the roll. Yes, sir.
On the motion to report, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 4 nays, 0 passed. The motion prevails.
Thank you. I now need a motion to report House Bill 6005 with recommendation. So moved by Representative Kofia. Please call the roll.
Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
No.
Fox,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Thompson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 4 nays, 0 passed. The motion prevails.
Thank you. All right, next we'll be taking up Senate Bills 922 through 925. Together, this bill package will expand protections for Michigan's vulnerable adults. We will hear from Senator Kleinfeld's Legislative Director, Renee Wilson. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Young and members of the Families, Children, and Seniors House Committee. My name is Renee Wilson, and I'm Legislative Director for Senator Kleinfeld, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of the Elder and Vulnerable Adults Bill Package. Senators are not able to be here, so I am speaking on behalf of each one of them. The bills aim to address a gap in the current process, ensuring that vulnerable individuals can successfully obtain a PPO. And the bill package, just to make note, received bipartisan support in the Senate chamber. SB 922, which is sponsored by my boss, Senator Kleinfeld, allows an individual who is 60 years or older, is a vulnerable adult, or has a developmental disability to petition the court to obtain an elder and vulnerable adult personal protection order, also known as a PPO. Senate Bill 923 is sponsored by Senator Anthony and includes embezzlement of a vulnerable adult as a base offense for racketeering, allowing prosecutors to pursue recovery of property under a 10-year statute of limitations from the current 6-year. If actions of embezzlement persist after the vulnerable adult's death, Senator Hertel's bill, SB 924, would extend legal protections beyond a vulnerable adult's death, ensuring that offenders who continue their schemes face the same penalties as if the exploitation had occurred while vulnerable adult was alive. And the last bill in the package, Senate Bill 925, Senator Irwin's sponsored bill, would allow each county or region to create a vulnerable adult multidisciplinary team to take a holistic approach in preventing, intervening, investigating, and prosecuting abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation of older and vulnerable adults. I will now defer additional information and any questions that members have to the following stakeholders that will be providing testimony on behalf of 922 and the bills within the entire package. Thank you.
All right, next we will hear from Stephanie Hall from Ageways, who will be speaking on the entire package. Is that correct? No? Are you Stephanie?
Yes, I was in the other room.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Stephanie here who will be speaking on the entire package on behalf of the Area Agencies on Aging Association of Michigan. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, the Honorable Chair Young and members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Hall, and I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Advocacy at Ageways Nonprofit Senior Services. I want to thank you for giving me the time to speak before you all today. I am here to express not only our agency's support for Senate Bills 922 through 925, but also the Area Agencies on Aging Association of Michigan's support of the bills as well. Ageways is the Area Agency on Aging that serves Livingston, Macomb, Monroe, Oakland, St. Clair, and Washtenaw counties in Southeast Michigan. Ageways has been assisting older adults, adults with disabilities, and caregivers for 50 years. We help people access the services and programs they need to remain living independently and with dignity in their own home or with family caregivers. We provide direct care programs for seniors, along with funding and support for many programs provided by our community partner organizations. This includes specific funding aimed at reducing elder abuse and financial exploitation. Ageways also participates in several elder abuse coalitions in Oakland and Macomb counties aimed at increasing knowledge of and access to resources to assist victims of elder abuse and financial exploitation. This region alone has experienced a 32% increase in older adults and this are older adults since the 2010 census, and across the state, the older adult population has grown by 33% since 2010. With this increase of the older adult population comes an increase in predatory behavior and elder abuse and exploitation. It is estimated that in Michigan, there are 73,000 older adults who are victims of elder abuse and exploitation. As the Area Agency on Aging that serves 30% of the total older adult population in the state, we see firsthand the large-scale effects of elder abuse and financial exploitation of some of the most vulnerable. Through various interactions with our staff, our contractors, and from sitting on these elder abuse committees in our community, we hear the reports from older adults and their loved ones about the prevalent cases of elder abuse and financial exploitation perpetrated on this group of vulnerable individuals. This group is often taken advantage of because of the perception that either they will not catch on to the abuse that is happening or that they just won't do anything to stop it. This group has also spent their entire life building up their wealth and their nest egg, making them a strong target for financial abuse. This abuse can come from neighbors, friends, and often loved ones who often start small, such as moving in to help their loved one with just things around the house, but then continuing to build and often taking advantage of the person that they are caring for. This abusive situation sometimes looks like a family member, such as an adult child, offering to provide care for their aging parent, help them with their financial situation, take care of them in their house. And while this, again, may start small, they continue to build and take advantage of their aging parent, constituting an unhealthy and abusive situation. Unfortunately, vulnerable adults often do not have a means of separating themselves from this situation and do not want to go the criminal route, as they may not only fear retaliation, but also the permanent severing of their relationship with that loved one. These personal protection orders are a way for an individual to sometimes change that current situation without holding the other party criminally liable. These bills would also allow for an extended period of time to recover those lost assets. These cases are often very complicated, so this additional amount of time will help not only the individual in the situation, but also their family members in solving these cases. These bills, if enacted, would be a lifeline for vulnerable adults. They would also allow older adults who are in abusive situations to separate themselves from their abusers, such as helping getting them out of their homes. And also the inclusion of a multidisciplinary team would assist in addressing this growing issue in communities with a multidisciplinary lens. The inclusion of MDTs in our community has improved the addressing of older abuse greatly, as we see in both Oakland and Macomb counties. And in closing, the older adults in our region and across the state would benefit from these additional protections, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to share our support for this package of bills. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Ms. Hall, do we have any questions? Yes, we do. Vice Chair Wozniak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding your testimony, it seemed that you used the terms elder and vulnerable interchangeably, yet in the bill it says someone has to be 60 years old to be considered vulnerable. Now, I know we've had concerns that some elders are not vulnerable and some vulnerable people aren't elders. So how do you differentiate that when you start looking at trying to enforce this?
So that was me interchanging them interchangeably, just mostly addressing as elder abuse. So we specifically work with 60-plus older adults. So when I speak, I am speaking of older adults specifically. It's just, in the community that a lot of times we do talk about these vulnerable adults that are outside of the older adult population. So like individuals with disabilities as well could be seen as vulnerable. But yeah, we mostly address with older adults.
But you would agree that elder adults and vulnerable adults are really two separate categories.
And in the community, they're often looked at as two separate categories. I know, again, speaking of individuals that with disabilities could be seen as a vulnerable adult, but they would not be constituted as, a 60-plus older adult. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Fox?
Yeah, Joseph Fox, and thank you, Madam Chair. And I served as the Commission on Aging Director in my county for several years. And one thing that I know that was preached there is please don't call me a senior unless you're going to give me the discount. Okay. And so I think my question might be similar to Mr. Wozniak's, but I guess why are PPOs so necessary for this community different than PPOs that are out there in general already? And I'd love to have you address that. Thank you.
Yeah, and so my understanding of the need for this right now is just with the PPO system that's set up currently. It's not really addressing this population and their unique needs fully. So by providing a different PPO option, a different path, would better be able to address the unique needs of this population. For example, like in this population, like I was mentioning, oftentimes it's family members or it's loved ones or it's an older adult who invited them into their house and wanted them to take care of their finances because it's your child and of course you trust them, and then that goes out of hand. So these cases, and from what we hear in the community, tend to be a lot more complicated. So my understanding is that this would allow a different avenue and a way to provide protections for the unique cases that these individuals have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we got to keep it moving. Thank you so much for your testimony.
you.
We're down to about 10 minutes. Time goes so quickly. Next, we will hear testimony from Megan Reynolds from Michigan Poverty Law Program and Emily Jackson Miller from the Crime Victims Legal Assistance Project. Ladies, please begin when you're ready. Like 3-4 minutes, maybe.
Okay, hello, thank you so much. Good morning, Chair and the members of the committee. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak today. My name is Emily Miller, and I'm the Program Director for the Crime Victims Legal Assistance Project, or CVLAP. CVLAP is a statewide team of public interest attorneys who provides free civil legal assistance to victims of crime. We currently have 28 lawyers in Michigan, and half of them specialize in addressing elder and vulnerable adult issues. The questions you guys asked were incredible. They're exactly what this gets at. The first one I wanted, Rep. Wozniak, in terms of the way to get this PPO is you are one of three things: 60 plus, or a vulnerable adult, or developmentally disabled. Very, very much I agree with you that somebody who's 60 or older doesn't mean they're vulnerable. The reason that that's really important to this specific proposal is because most of the clients we serve are 60 plus, and they do not have a developmental disability and are not vulnerable. What they are is they love their adult son and they want to be helpful, and that they welcome that person into their home, and that's how this begins. It doesn't mean that they're frail, it doesn't mean that they lack capacity, anything like that. It just happens to be the clients that this affects, and so we want it to represent that. With regard to the reason why a PPO is specifically important in this case, this is like one of the most common types of cases that we get. And what we use currently are domestic PPOs to try to resolve them. The problem, though, with the domestic PPO statute is it really doesn't address the type of harms that the clients experience. It's set up primarily to serve individuals who experience domestic violence. And so there is a similar coercive control pattern, but oftentimes it's much more physically violent. The clients in these cases experience financial exploitation, which is not something that is dealt with in our existing PPO framework. These clients are often met with a lot of ageist and ableist slurs and humiliation and psychological abuse, which is also not something necessarily that's covered in the existing PPO framework. Neglect is something that is not at all covered in the existing PPO framework, which is a really big one, because if the perpetrator is saying something to the individual that's experiencing the harm, I'm not going to assist you with picking up this medication that could be life-saving medication unless you give me your credit card so I can buy alcohol with it, then the client's going to feel like they have to do that. And that is not covered in our current statute. The other thing that I think it's important to note is these clients often cannot flee to domestic violence shelters because it's not intimate partner violence. They often, particularly with vulnerable adults, they may have specific things in their home that they need for accommodations, and so that also leaves them in a situation where they cannot leave. And they also don't want to call law enforcement, as my colleague said. And so this is a way for them to feel safe in their home, to get someone out, and to not have to put that person in a situation of having their loved one who may have substance abuse or mental health issues that are untreated get in trouble. This particular PPO addresses the harms that this population experiences and is not covered currently. Because if we can't get a PPO in those cases, our clients stop calling us. And I worry about them. I worry that what's going to happen is the next time that I hear or I Google their name, that I'm going to learn that they died in their home because they couldn't get that person out.
All right, you're about out of time.
Okay, I'll stop there.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Because our committee abuts session, so we have to get across the street, but. feel free
I
to
will
go
go
ahead.
incredibly quickly. I want to thank you, Chair Young, for having us here to speak in support of Senate Bill 922. My name is Megan Reynolds. I am the Family Law Specialist at Michigan Poverty Law Program, which is the technical assistance and training center that supports teams of civil legal aid attorneys like Emily's around the state. Emily served as one of the chairs of the Attorney General's Elder Abuse Task Force Subcommittee. I did not. I was brought in late to deal with technical issues because I have a background as a court administrator and spent years working inside the courts administering PPOs and other family division programs. And so as the bill was nearing completion, I worked on some of the technical issues that have been raised by some of those who have raised concerns about the bill. So I just wanted to very quickly go through those and offer to answer any questions on those kind of technical points. So first of all, the reason that this bill is assigned to the family division of the circuit court is because every other type of PPO in Michigan is assigned to the same family division of the circuit court. And that is consistent with the Revised Judicature Act of 1961. This bill would add a section to the Revised Judicature Act. So all the other PPO types, including the one that was most recently adopted by the legislature in earlier this session, the Extreme Risk Protection Order, was added to the Revised Judicature Act and assigned to the family division. And so it keeps everything consistent. The clerk understands them. Their law enforcement lien entry is the same, et cetera. So that is one reason why that was there. And we're asking for the consistency that to be kept the same. The other reason to have it assigned to the family division and not to the probate court is just because of the specialization that the clerks have. So when people who are almost all unrepresented when they come in to get a PPO, they just know they need a PPO. They don't know there are domestics versus sexual assault versus non-domestic stalking and what the elements are of each of those. The whole point of this bill is to add a new type that meets elements that are specific to this vulnerable population. So we don't want to replace one set of obstacles for this population with a different one. So we don't want them to go into circuit court clerk and be turned away because this is the type of relief that they're looking for. And I'm happy to answer any other questions along those lines of technical fixes.
Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. It says in the bill that these PPOs could be issued ex parte. What is the level of proof you need? And what if mom says, I don't want to do that against Jimmy, my son?
So if mom doesn't want to file a PPO against her son Jimmy, she doesn't have to. It's entirely up to the petitioner whether they want to do it or not, because it's not a criminal action, and so the prosecutor's not driving it. It's the mom herself, and so a client would want to, or an individual would want to pursue it themselves.
But it did say in the literature here, it could be issued ex parte.
Right. So ex parte means mom could apply for it before the court and say, I need to get this before Jimmy knows about it, because if he knows this is pending while we're in the same house together, he could retaliate and really hurt me. And so Mom can get it without a hearing first. Jimmy is then served with it and will have to come out of the home if that's what the PPO allows for. And then Jimmy can challenge that, and then there'd be a trial where Jimmy gets to say his piece, Mom gets to say her piece, and then the judge can either terminate it, modify it, or keep it in place. And so ex parte for PPOs is in all types of PPOs in Michigan is one of the most important elements of them, because if, for example, she wanted to evict him, they would be living in the same house together for months at a time, and that risk of retaliation would be incredible. We have clients who they never take that unless they can get out of the house somehow, because it's so unsafe. So that's a critical part of how PPOs work.
Okay, but the court can't issue it on its own volition.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's gonna have to be the last question because we are really, really running out of time. We have a few cards.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you both for your testimony. Okay, so we have Judy White. Is Judy White still here? Okay. Ms. White, okay, thank you for being here. We know you're speaking to the opposition. You literally have like 1 minute because we gotta go.
And I appreciate
sorry.
that, but these people spoke at the judiciary meeting. As an association, we are citizens, we are constituents. We are the families that brought the elder abuse problem back in 2019 with Dana Nessel. What I'm having a huge problem with is because no one's asking us to come to the table. We're not getting ultimate hours of times to sit here and give our plight. One of the
So,
things
now,
that's so
ma'am-
beautiful about this bill, I will stick to the
Okay,
bill.
thank you.
Because I would like to meet with you. We've met with you before. You know about us blue shirts. We are the VIPs, the victims in probate court. We are the ones that the guardians and conservators are using this method of lacking due process to harm our family members because we're the innocent ones. We are the ones that are crying out for help. So I want to thank all of you who are allegedly writing this bill, but it must come with consequences. That if any of these lawyers or people do this, and then there's a consequence of what happened to my family for 12 years, or Cindy's family, or Ted's family, or I don't even want to name the names of the people that we've been working with as a VIP. We are all the victims. We don't know anything about this crime victim. They could have contacted us and helped us, but they're not. So all I'm asking is that you guys put something in there for a consequence so that if something happens for an aftermath, that we innocent people that have been plagued with this legal stuff that we didn't understand what a PPO was, what a no contact order was, what a show cause hearing was. We're good citizens. We never anticipated attorneys harming us and our family when it comes to probate court.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm so glad you came. and
Well,
thank you for
hopefully
your
we'd like to plan a meeting. Can we please get a date? Because I do not want to leave because these other
Ms.
people.
White, this
how can we
gentleman
get a date?
right here
That gentleman
is
will
my
help
LD and my scheduler. So
Thank you.
We're here in the
I'd like
room.
a
You'll
meeting
get
with
that.
you. I mean,
will-
so that we can have an
You will
hour.
get your meeting.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
so much for your testimony. All right, and we have a number of cards. Okay, so we have a few cards here. Have a number of them, but again, because of timing, I'll just read a few. How about I read the ones that I could read? We're gonna have to take penmanship classes when you. All right, here we go. Oh, yeah. Ashley Steffen with the Attorney General's Office, supporting the bills. Wanted to speak, but we ran out of time, so thank you for being here. We have Brandon Lanyon with Pam, supports the bills, not wishing to speak. We have Alex Morris, Michigan Bankers, supports the bills, not wishing to speak. Tom Hickson, Michigan Catholic Conference, supports the bills, not wishing to speak. And we have several others. So thank you all for our turbo testimony on today. I apologize, we're running out of time. This is our last families meeting, I do believe. So now that we've read in the cards, I need to take a motion to report Senate Bill 922 with recommendation. So moved by Representative Glanville. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Scotia,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Pass.
Fox,
Yes.
Johnson,
Pass.
Thompson.
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, 4 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Now I need a motion to report Senate Bill 923 with recommendation so moved by Representative Kofia. Please call the roll.
Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Sophia,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yep.
Arbit,
Yep.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yeah.
Fox,
Pass.
Johnson,
Pass.
Thompson.
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, 4 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Now I need a motion to report Senate Bill 924 with recommendation. So moved by Representative Glanville. Please call the roll.
Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Sophia,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Pass.
Fox,
Pass.
Johnson,
Pass.
Thompson.
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, 4 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. I need a motion to report Senate Bill 925 with recommendation. So moved by Representative Edwards. Please call the roll.
On the motion to report, Chair Young,
Yes.
Representative Sophia,
Yes.
Glanville,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yeah.
Fox,
Pass.
Johnson,
Pass.
Thompson.
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, 4 pass. The motion prevails.
And at 1:29, there being no further business before the Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors, I just want to thank everyone. It has been a great 2 years. Thank you all for your attentiveness. Thank you all for your engagement. And with that, happy holidays.